Are we live?
Yes.
We're live. Hi everyone. I wanted to thank you all for joining me today. I know it's going to take a few minutes for more people to join in. I've got my computer here too, and I will be sharing this post. In the meantime, I would love it if you could share this with your friends, let people know that I'm on live. I'm doing something really special, I think, I hope. I am coming to you from the comfort of my home, where I've been since the middle of March, like most of you have been. It's a really crazy time we're living in. It's a very strange time that we're living in. And I think, like all of you, I've gone through all of my various emotions, if you will. Anger, frustration, and you just kind of let it all go away after a while. And the one thing that I've learned, thanks to a lot of wise people that I've been talking to and following and reading, is that I've learned to take this whole experience not as what has been taken away from me, but what I've gained. What have I gained? I've gained a newfound respect and love for those close to me. I have gained a lot of knowledge because of all the books and things that I've read online. I've gained a better sense of myself and who I am, only because I've been able to stop and smell the roses, if you will. You stop, you think, you get to realize what's important to you. One of the things that I have gained over the last month and a half of being in self-quarantine and self-isolation here in New York City is the knowledge of cooking. I used to dabble in cooking. I would probably call them cooking nightmares, not real cooking. But I've been able now to stop and take the time and learn and read and really understand that a recipe or something that we cook is really an heirloom of our past, at least in my case, because I've been working on a lot of recipes that my mom handed down to me. I was very fortunate to save her recipe book before she passed. I was able to cook with her too before she passed, and I learned a lot. Cooking brings us together. It unites us. It's a connection to our past. And speaking of my past, I have fond memories. I'm sure that there's a lot of Cretans in the house. Are my Cretans there? Give a message, like, write something, tell me where you're from. Hi, Cretans. My parents both came from Crete, and I was very fortunate to be raised in a home filled with memories and stories. Many of the stories I share on the Pappas Post of my parents that I was taught. And now I'm very lucky because I'm going to be able to share a recipe with you. This was the recipe that my mother, Joanne Pappas, was known for throughout the city of Pittsburgh. People would come over when she made her Haniotiko Boureki. It was something that filled the house with aromas of Crete. And it's hard to make. I'll tell you why, because in Crete, we use a kind of cheese called mizithra, and they also throw in a second kind of soft white cheese called, don't laugh, it's really called this, you can Google it, but the cheese that we is called malaka. Yes, it's a real cheese in Chania called malaka. So it's hard to find mizithra. In Pittsburgh, it's hard to find mizithra in anywhere outside of the big metropolitan areas. We're lucky here in New York. We have Greek grocery stores all over the place, and we can find mizithra, but I'm assuming the vast majority of you don't have Greek grocery stores where you live. So it's taken me several years to finally master the perfect mix of what makes my mom's Haniotiko Boureki, smells up the house just like our family homes in Crete and Chania, and I'm super excited to share it with you. Now, I will be publishing the recipe on the Pappas Post. I'm not a cook, so if I don't give you exact instructions, I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I'll do my very best to share with you my secrets. I have already done some prep work. Otherwise, you'd be here for 3 hours watching me prepare this. It doesn't really take that long, but I've already made the dough, and the dough is super, super simple. I made it about an hour ago, and as you'll see, it's very greasy and very oily, and it's supposed to be. What you need for the dough is 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And I only use olive oil from Crete. It's where I'm from. And I'm very lucky because my dear friend Maria Loy, who happens to live down the street, her restaurant happens to be a half a block away. And also we're lucky to have Whole Foods here. But her olive oil, which is from Crete, it says it right there on the bottle, product of Greece, Crete. I have a stock of Cretan olive oil. If you don't have Cretan olive oil, use any kind of Greek extra virgin olive oil. So in a bowl, you want 3 cups of flour, you want 1 cup of extra virgin olive oil, you want a cup of water, you want a teaspoon of salt, and another very important thing, which is going to be very hard for some of you to come by, but if you lived in a Cretan home, you knew. And my cousin is here. We've been social distancing together. I'm going to introduce him to you in a little bit. He's going to bring me a very important element. Aki, toraki. Yep, that's it. Everyone say hi to Akis Tsanakakis, Chef Akis Tsanakakis. This is raki. It's very important to use. I know some of you are going to say, where can I find raki? Ask a Cretan. Every Cretan in America has a bottle of this stuff somewhere. If you're not from Crete, from Peloponneso, you can call it's called tsipuro. I wouldn't use ouzo. I wouldn't use any other flavor. This is like a moonshine kind of drink. So you need 1 shot of this in the dough. I made my dough. I mixed it. You mix it with a spoon at first. You get your olive oil in your hands, and then you start mixing it in a bowl. Lots of olive oil here, as you can see. You see it? So we're going to use this in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you the dough. The dough I made about an hour ago, and I put it in the fridge. So I'll put this away. So, very important, your vegetables. The vegetables need to be fresh. Aquí, también voy thesis. Your vegetables need to be fresh. I use, for a pan around this size, which is, I don't know, 33 centimeters of lepistile. 23 by 33, which is 3.5 something. I'll put this all on the in the link, but this is the size pan. Akis is going to help me here. You definitely need to use one of these. Don't cut unless you can really, really cut thin strips of zucchini. You want it thin because you want it to bake in the oven. So we're going to start by trimming this. I've already washed my vegetables. It's really simple. Just do this. I'm using 4 zucchini. And as you can see, pieces will go all over the place. It's really thin. It's super thin. You want it like paper thin. And Akis is going to finish that while I talk to you a little bit about the cheese mix. The cheese mix is, like I said before, we usually use mizithra in Crete. Very hard to find mizithra. Mizithra is like a soft, it's not sweet, but we use it in things like kalitsunya during Easter. So it's not a tart cheese. You don't want this to be very tart. You want a hint of tartness in it, but not very tart. You want it to ultimately be creamy, and you want to mix it up in a way where the cheese is going to coat all of the vegetables. So while Akis is doing that, I'm going to get the other vegetables out and simultaneously start working on the other most important part of this dish, fresh mint. Lots of mint. I've used about a bunch here. Not those little plastic containers where there's like 5 little strips and 3 leaves. I mean, you really need a lot of mint. By the way, I'm not seeing any of your comments right now. I haven't mastered this technique yet of Facebook Live, so we'll figure that out. If you are commenting, thank you. Thanks for joining. Share the video. I'm starting to chop my mint leaves. I've seen a lot of variations of this recipe in other parts of Crete. I've seen it with other greens, with parsley. Nowhere in Hania have I ever seen this dish with anything other than mint. Mint, zucchini, and potatoes go really well together. You really, really need a lot of mint. I'm trying to chop it as small as I can, but you don't want to chop it too small because the leaves envelop, if you will, the potato and the zucchini. I think right about now, if this were, you know, someone like Maria Loy doing a live video, she'd be telling you stories or something like that. I really have no stories to share with you, so I'm doing my best to improvise while I cut my mint. Maria, I think you're watching. If you're there, give us a shout out. Thank you for watching. So here's our mint leaves, not too finely chopped because you want a little bit. So here we are. We've got our mint. I'm going to put this all right back in here. It's going to get fun pretty soon. I also want to remind everyone that this is a live show, so we might have some. So our cheese. Our cheese, as I was saying before, mizithra. You're not going to find mizithra in Kansas City or wherever you are. So I've been able to find this perfect mix. And it tastes just like my mom's. So I use whole milk ricotta, 1 container. It says here 15 ounces. Just plop it in to a bowl. Okay, I use 1 container of Italian mascarpone. Plop it into the bowl. Like a cream cheese. I use a cup of Greek yogurt. I think that's about a cup, maybe a little bit more. Okay, and then, as I said before, you want the tartness. You want a little bit of the tartness. So what I do is put 1 slab of feta, and I'm using what I think is the very best feta available in the United States. It's Greek feta, it's Epiros. I can get it here at the grocery store. I'm really lucky. Although I don't get my feta at the grocery store, Maria Loy gives it to me. So I wish you all had a Maria Loy a block away. You'd be getting all these great products. So here we go. Start mixing. Break up the feta as much as you can. You want to really get all the cheeses mixed together. I wouldn't yet recommend using your hands because you're going to need your hands later. But break up the feta as much as you can. Mix the cheese. Now, I don't put any salt or pepper in the cheese mix because there's already tartness from the feta, but I will do it on the vegetables later, and I'll show you that in a second. So, break up the feta so there's not too many big chunks. Make my cheeses and my yogurt mix, and you come up with a really cool consistency. Eventually, I'm going to have a producer watching the show with me that can answer, or at least whisper in my ear, any of your questions. Like I said, right now, unfortunately, I don't have the technical capacity to be able to follow along what you're writing or what you're commenting. So here's my cheese. How's that look? Looks good, huh? So I've pretty much broken down all the feta. So I need
Some people are asking what you're making because they joined now.
I'm making Haniotiko Boureki. It's a dish that my mom used to cook at home in Pittsburgh. It is a traditional dish of Chania on the island of Crete, where both of my parents came from, and it's a dish that I grew up having. It was kind of like that dish that reminded me of summers in Crete with my grandparents. I'll do a quick reminder, a quick rewind. I already made the dough. The dough has been sitting in my fridge for about an hour now. All it is 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of extra virgin olive oil. I use olive oil from Crete. This is Maria Loy's olive oil. It's available at Whole Foods. And I also use a shot of tsikulia. We call it tsikulia, we call it raki. If you're from the mainland, you can call it tsipuro. So I made my dough, I mixed it up, lots of olive oil. It's a very greasy dough, which we want it to be. And I put it in the fridge for an hour. And then my vegetables are 3 zucchini and 3 potatoes. And you mix them all up. And you need to use a paper shredder, not a paper shredder, a potato shredder. What are those things called? Πώς τα λένε αυτά στα ελληνικά? Trifti. This is Akis, my cousin. He's from Chania, Zanakakis. That's my mom's maiden name. He's a chef here in New York City at a restaurant called Elea. You should check it out whenever it opens and whenever this whole pandemic is over. He's brought some of his own recipes from Greece that he used to cook with him, and he shares them at the restaurant. So here we have our vegetables. Tomatoes. Where did that come from? Sorry about that. Potatoes, zucchini, paper thin. It's very important that you use paper thin, because they have to bake in the oven. So now we're going to put some salt and pepper. Yes, I use Greek salt. Some salt and pepper. Mix it all up. And then we're going to use some pepper. Okay, and for those of you that have just joined, I was telling everybody that the staple ingredient of this dish is a cheese, a soft white cheese in Crete that we call mizithra. In Chania, we also have another kind of cheese called malaka that we use. I know, don't laugh, but that really is the name of the cheese. What I've done here for American kitchens, because it's hard to find some of these cheeses, is I've used 1 container of ricotta cheese. It's a small container, 15 ounces. 1 container of mascarpone cheese. It's an Italian soft cheese. I've used a slab of feta, so not a whole tin, just a slab. As you can see, your feta comes in slabs. I don't know how many ounces or anything like that is. I'll try to figure it out. And I've also used a cup of Greek yogurt. I've mixed it all together. Here's my cheese right here. I also cut a bunch of fresh mint. Mint is the critical smell of this dish. So I'm not ready to mix everything together yet because I need to use my hands. But before I use my hands in this mix, I want to show you how to roll out the filo. So we've got our dough, and what you want to do is start mixing it like this. There might be some air bubbles. Mine's getting a little dry right now, which is okay. There's no butter in this filo, by the way. No butter at all. Just mix in some more olive oil. And I'm gonna cut mine in two, and I'll tell you why. One is a little bit smaller than the other. So I'm gonna put this in here for now. And as I told you guys before, I'm not a cook, so I don't even have a rolling pin here. But it's okay. I'm gonna put some flour down here. A little bit too much here. It's okay. And I'm going to start, and you want to shape this out in the shape that your pan is going to be. So in my case, it's going to be this rectangle here. So as I said, I don't have a rolling pin, but I have a bottle of wine, and I have cleaned it. So I'm going to start doing this. Aqui posta pau. Look at those little pieces of zucchini snuck in here. So I've seen other recipes of this where they've used old school filo, you know, the kind that you make baklava with. If that's your thing, you can do that. It's just a lot harder to work with, and the taste comes out a little bit different because you really don't want this to be crunchy. You want it to almost be flaky and bread-like. So of course, this would be much easier with a rolling pin, which I don't have. And while I'm doing this, I also want to tell you guys about my new live series. I'm planning this week, and I'm super excited to welcome a lot of really cool people on my live stream here. People that I think a lot of you will find interesting. This coming Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be live on Facebook with four people from Greece, and we're going to talk about tourism this summer. Tourism in the age of the pandemic, whether or not they're hopeful for the season. I'm very honored to have as my guests on Tuesday, and I'll be making an event again, and I'll share it with you. But I'm going to have Tim Ananiadis, who is the general manager of the Grand Britannia Hotel. I'm going to have Karsten and Michalis, who are the proprietors of one of the most famous clubs in the world, Jackie O in Mykonos. And I'm going to have Melina Pispa, the proprietor of a very well-known retail brand called Son of a Beach, beach towels. Three people, we're going to talk to them about what the prospects of summer tourism in Greece is, what their fears are, what their hopes are. So as you can see, this filo takes a little bit of time to roll out and to get it. You want to do it as big and then some for the bottom of your pan. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to do most of your work inside the pan here, and you'll see in a little bit. You also kind of want to keep it as even as possible because you want to make sure it cooks. So now Akis is going to roll out the second one because we're going to use this one on the bottom, and then we're going to roll out a second one and put it on top, and you'll see. So Aki, φτιάξε εσύ το πάνω μέρος, αυτό, θα το βάλω αυτό εδώ για τώρα. Now comes the fun part. This is my favorite part. So you've got your potatoes and zucchini here. I put some salt and pepper in here, and I've got my cheese. Now, most people probably wouldn't do this, but I'm not most people. You can probably do this with a spoon, but I like to get my hands dirty. So, here we have it. You want to be able to space everything out as much as possible. You want the cheese to really coat the vegetables. I've seen boureki where it's just been kind of clumpy and you've got clumps of cheese and the flavors really aren't spread. So my way of making sure the flavors spread is really getting my hands dirty, and that's this. You want to mix it up as much as you can. You want to really coat the zucchini and the potato. Now you'll notice that I haven't put my mint in yet, and that's intentional because you don't want the mint to clump either. So I want to coat my vegetables with the cheese mixture. And I don't know what it is with these recipes, but people are asking me if they put other vegetables in. No, you don't put other vegetables in. I mean, put other vegetables in if you want, but you're making your own creation. This is old school boureki from Kenya. We only use potatoes and zucchini. We don't use eggplant. We don't use, whatever. And again, this was my particular family recipe. You may have another recipe that was your own. So this is all coated. You see my vegetables? Every single vegetable has become coated with the cheese. Now that all the vegetables are coated with the cheese, I'm going to mix in my mint. And you really, really want the mint to be overpowering. You want the mint to be the predominant flavor in here, and do the same thing. And right now what's happening is the mint is sticking to all of the vegetables. So you're not getting clumps of mint and clumps of cheese and having this separation of flavors, right? Mixing it all up, the mint's going everywhere. It's connecting with the zucchini and the potatoes. And as I said before, I am going to post this recipe on the Pappas Post website, and I'll share it in this video too at some point. And all of my measurements basically are exact for my pan and my size, and I'll try to do my best. So, you see what we got here? Our finished product. Almost every piece that you pick up, you're going to see greens attached to it from the mint. You're going to see cheese on it. You really don't want to just plop this stuff in a pan and cook. You really want to mix the flavors as much as possible. So, here we go. We're good to go. Now, once again, my assistant here is Akis Tsanakakis. He's from Crete. He lives here in New York. Θα φέρεις αυτό εδώ. Θα το κάνεις λίγο με τις άκρες. So what he's going to do now is show you how to fix the dough. We're putting the dough just up, not all the way to the top, because we have a top. He's spreading it out with his fingers. And you only really need it to make like a cup. You see how it's coming up a little bit here? If you have any other questions, you can pop them in. We'll try to answer them as much as I can. My cameraman here is doing a great job, and he can read the messages while he's shooting. So you see what we're doing here with our dough? Είχα ένα βρεμένο πανί. Yeah. So, I mean, if I had my sink next to me, I would use my sink, but I'm washing my hands, wiping my hands. Εντάξει. So here we go. Now we're ready to add a little bit of oil. You want to get the oil into all of your dough so that it penetrates and it makes it flaky. Don't use butter on this particular recipe. So we've made our little cup of dough. Now we're going to add, and what you want to do is you want to drop this in, and it doesn't matter if it goes over your edges. And another thing that I did in order to master this is I patted everything down. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a lot of air in between these vegetables. It just tastes better whenever it's... And you really want to load it up. You can go over the edges. You don't have to stay up to the point where the filo, the dough is. So as you can see, for my particular size pan, my measurements were perfect. I used 3 potatoes that were around, medium sized to large potatoes, and I used 4 zucchini. So now we're packing everything down, packing everything down. You want to get all the air bubbles out of there. And then we're going to take our filo, and this is our top filo. Aiki, how am I doing so far? Kalapao. Perfect. The chef says I'm doing perfect. So here we are. Now what we're doing is we're pinching it down so that it touches the bottom filo. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have some cheese stick up. And don't cut away any of the excess filo. This is really the tastiest part. Just, you make your edges thicker. You can stick it in. You can still spread it out. It's still very pliable. Again, don't be afraid of some of the cheese coming out. It's really all going to just bake and look really tasty at the end. So here we are, finishing touches. What are the finishing touches? More olive oil. Make sure you get it everywhere. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. So now that we've got olive oil all over this, I am going to take my sesame seeds. Okay, and then we're going to do this so that it can breathe. I'm taking a fork basically and putting holes in it. You want to penetrate the dough. And now, just so that it doesn't burn around the edges, I will wipe this cheese off the edges because the cheese is the first thing that's going to cook. And if it's sticking to the edge, it'll burn. But here we are. So this is my mother's Haniotiko Boureki. Thank you to all of you who watched. What I'm going to do now is I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees. You want a low heat, not a very high heat, because you really want these vegetables to cook and to merge with the cheese. I'm not one of these celebrity chefs that has one cooking in the oven, and I'm not going to bring it out and show you what the finished product is. I will show you some pictures tonight of the finished product, but if you go to my personal Facebook page, you can see what the finished product looks like. Find me on Gregory Pappas. You can see a picture that I posted. You want to cook this in the oven for about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours in a low heat. It really depends on your oven, but you'll notice the filo will turn golden brown. What I do at some point, because this is dough, it's not filo, so it's not going to get flaky. But what I do at about halfway, whenever I've seen the filo start cooking, is I'll get my knife out and I'll start cutting it and making my my cuts, and then let it cook for the rest of the time. So because it's easier to cut whenever the dough is soft. So cut it a little bit, make your pieces, put it back in the oven. The whole thing's going to need about 2 hours. Thank you very much for joining me on my first Facebook Live. As I said, stay tuned to the page. This coming Tuesday, we've got a very special show lined up with 4 people from Greece who are going to talk about tourism this summer. And then on Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'm very honored to have as my guest Steve Ranakis, who is the Chief Creative Officer for the entire country of Greece. He's a fabulous Greek-Canadian, ex-Google executive. So I'm very excited to bring all these exciting people to you. I thought it would be appropriate for my inaugural show to have a little bit about me and what I've learned during this pandemic, and that is to cook and to pay tribute to my mother and father who came from Crete. Thank you all for watching. Please continue reading. Please continue supporting. We really need your support to keep the Pappas Post going. We've got about 25 to 30,000 readers a day that read our articles online, and it truly is a labor of love for all of us involved with keeping you informed, keeping you educated, keeping you inspired, and hopefully teaching you how to cook a recipe from Crete. Thank you all very much. Have a good afternoon. Be safe.